Welcome to my new literature review. I'm going to be reviewing a new book called Connections, A Guide to Using Support in ACA. I'm Ken Francis, California licensed marriage and family therapist. I work with people struggling with addictions, trauma, and recovery. And I refer most of my patients to the ACA Adult Children of Alcoholics Fellowship. I believe that therapy and ACA recovery go hand in hand. And I have done a lot of previous literature reviews. You can check out several videos that I've done on the Loving Parent Guidebook. And with the new publications out of the World Service Organization, I thought I would do another one and review Connections. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you'd like to check out these other videos. Connections is the most recent piece of literature to come out of the ACA Fellowship from the World Service Organization. It was first published on March 27th, 2025. I picked up my copy for $15. It is 115 pages, and I would say about half of the text is comprised of personal shares and stories. This book aims to clarify the differences between the fellow traveler model and the sponsor. And originally, ACA talked about just upgrading Chapter 11 in the Big Red Book, which talks about sponsorship and support. But the delegation behind the literature review decided it might be better just to create a whole other book talking about this topic. And I'd like to start out by saying that I'm a firm believer that less is more. So I know that ACA laundry list trait number 8 kind of works against that, saying that we're all addicted to excitement and drama, which to me is just like more, 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 more. But I really believe that less is more. And for that reason, I'm a firm believer that everything that a person needs to know, whether you're just walking in the door as a newcomer or that you're an old timer, that the Big Red Book, the basic text, holds really all the information that you need to know. And there are other workbooks and other texts that ACA has put out. And I think really when it comes down to it, the Big Red Book by far is the most important. I think that the Loving Parent Guidebook and the Yellow Step Workbook are amazing, as is the Daily Affirmations. I think when they started adding other stuff, it tends to take away from the importance of the basic texts. And just a reminder that ACA is established as a 12-step fellowship. And I think a lot of this stuff does detract us from the main mission of working through the 12 steps, understanding the 12 traditions, working towards that sense of serenity, emotional recovery, becoming your own loving parent. I think these are the goals, and I really don't want people that are just new seeing all this literature and being so amazed and overwhelmed that they don't really know where to start, even though some of the things scream start here, start here, start here. I think that might take away from the power of the Big Red Book. Anyway, back to Connections. Let's look inside and see if it's really taking the time to read, if it's worth the $15, and if it's also worth the time of the literature people at all the in-person meetings to have one more pamphlet or book to stock. I normally don't have a lot of time to read, so I like literature that is concise to the point. And I know other people really like to swim around in what they're reading and savor it and take a lot of time. If that's who you are, then you might really enjoy Connections. I really feel that a lot of it is very drawn out, and there are so many stories and shares within here that for me it loses sight of what maybe I might be looking for. The shares are great, like I said, if you're coming in and maybe you need all this, but they're not for everybody. So keep in mind also that the primary reason behind putting this book together was to clarify the difference between fellow traveler and sponsor. And the model here is really aiming people a little bit more towards looking at what is a fellow traveler, how would you work together with somebody. And it starts out by saying that having experience and knowledge in the ACA program is not that important. The important thing is the willingness and the commitment to work with somebody else, and also to be able to find somebody who you can work with who exemplifies that nurturing, loving parent. I am a strong believer in fellowship, and I believe that the newcomers are extremely important people. They're important to the meeting. Certainly always welcome the newcomers, and as a newcomer, somebody's new to the fellowship, you're going to be working with the three don'ts. Don't talk, don't feel, don't trust. Those things are going to be like a big wall around you when you first come in. So I realize it's really difficult in coming in to a program to start reaching out to other people. And I think this book really does cover kind of taking baby steps to make sure that you feel safe enough in an environment. I always think that if you're in the meeting, then obviously maybe you've hit bottom and something has happened to push you into this area of discomfort, that whether or not you like it, whether or not you like reaching out, asking for help, trusting other people, that you're at that bottom and that place in your life where out of desperation, you just need to do it. Many of us, when we come into program, just don't have the luxury of sitting things out and kind of waiting for like a sponsor to drop in on our lap or somebody to come up and greet us. I really think that because of the desperation, that moves us more into an action phase in our recovery. So yeah, you walk into the program and you find somebody who emulates a loving parent. They're kind, they're compassionate. Well, hey, the fellowship is made up of a lot of people pleasers. So this is the trap, I think, that it's easy to fall into in early recovery, and to be careful with what the book is saying about people not having to have knowledge and experience in the program. Because if you don't have that knowledge and experience, you're very likely to trigger each other without even realizing it, and not having the tools to help you manage that when it comes up. I've heard stories of people that are in step study groups where everybody is just starting out at the same place, but somebody gets their beak twisted over something somebody says, or somebody goes 2 minutes over of their time, and somebody else just gets really triggered by that. And this is where it helps to have somebody who's not only loving and nurturing, but has the tools and the boundaries to keep everyone centered and focused, and to point out when things are being triggered so that you can start responding to those triggers versus reacting to them. And that's stuff that happens to be in the Big Red Book and in the Loving Parent Guidebook. I don't think you're going to find that much in Connections. And another thing I found about newcomers is they are often very inconsistent and unreliable. Many people that come in are just extremely scattered, and trying to deal with the don't talk, don't feel, don't trust just adds to them being all really, really, really scattered. So for this reason, if you're new and you're experiencing that yourself, it's going to be very difficult for you to try to work the program with somebody who's struggling with the same thing. Usually you need somebody with experience to help balance you out. So this is one of the things I disagree with the book. I really do think it's important to have people that have experience that are helping you along the journey. One of the basic concepts that I get out of Connections is that it's really looking at the fellowship at large, not having many sponsors, and just kind of accepting that everyone's always going to be new and coming in. And how do we take these people and get them grounded and connected with each other so that they could utilize each other to grow? The book talks about how often the people within a meeting kind of fall back into recreating their family of origin. And this is where it's important to have somebody in the mix who has some experience that can pull back and be a loving parent and model effective boundaries, and trying to simmer down laundry list number 8 when it starts to boil over. Because otherwise, the meeting is in a constant state of crisis and turmoil, and we really can't grow if that's the state that we're in. We don't grow when we're comfortable, but when we're too uncomfortable, we leave. We don't come back. We don't return. I really feel the book missed the mark here because I think it would have been really important if this book really focused more on the 12th step about, hey, we come into the program, we're raw and we're struggling, but what do we do when we get solid? What do we do when we get stable? I really think there needs to be more of a focus in ACA on developing sponsors. And there is a tag I'll put up above to a video that I've done on how to find and be an ACA sponsor. I think the book would have been a lot more beneficial if it really was geared more towards getting people to be sponsors and then reaching out, and then how do the newcomers relate with this. But unfortunately, there's just not an abundance of sponsors in the ACA fellowship. And I hear this from people that come over from AA and Al-Anon and all the other fellowships. They say this program just seems really weak because there's no mentorship, there's no sponsorship. It's the blind leading the blind. So my goal has always been to try to develop more leadership and more sponsorship within the ACA fellowship. And this book, I think, had the opportunity to go that route, but instead they accepted that people are going to be really vulnerable coming in, and we just have to have kid gloves and realize that there's just not a lot of stable people with long-term recovery in ACA, I guess. Now, I might be wrong. You might go to ACA meetings that have a very solid base of sponsors and a really solid base of old timers who are living the steps, living step 12. They come back, they're of service, they give back, they sponsor people, and they train everyone they sponsor to turn around and be a sponsor. And please, if you belong to a group like that, give me a private message, write something in the comments of the video. I really would like to know what's working for you, because it seems like so many people are struggling. And the answer, unfortunately, isn't in here. And like I said earlier, the text is very basic, not necessarily right to the point. I think what might have been helpful if they did want to spend more time clarifying is maybe just to come up with one or two more trifolds to have available at meetings to have some of this information in it. But like I said, when you remove all the shares and stories out of this, you don't have much literature left. The one thing I really love about this book is Appendix D. This is the sponsorship agreement. And once again, now we are talking about sponsorship again. And this is an agreement between somebody who is a sponsor and somebody who wants to be starting off as a sponsee. This is basically delineated boundaries. I love it. Best part of the whole book. So in conclusion, some people are really going to love this literature. I really think, though, that sticking with the basic texts like the Big Red Book might be better for focus. Too many people go from self-help book to self-help book and workbook to workbook, and they don't really give themselves time to absorb the concepts. Example might be the Loving Parent Guidebook. I know people that go to Loving Parent Guidebook study meetings, but they never open the book during the week in between the meetings. They never work the assignments between the meetings. And this is my point. When you're just kind of picking and choosing and going through the motions, things aren't going to stick as well. It's going to be a much slower process. So adding another book to swim through when you can just focus on the basic text, well, that's my point. Focus on the basic text. I picked up Connections for $15. I picked up A New Hope for $15. So that's $30 right there. And I know a lot of people new to recovery don't have a lot of money to spend. Why spend $30 on these two publications when you can spend $21, $22 and pick up a Big Red Book which has everything in it? And then the money that you've saved, the $7 or so that you've saved, you take that money, and after the meeting, you go out with your peers for fellowship and you spend the $7 on a cup of coffee. I think that's money better spent. That's putting action into your recovery. Two people trying to guide each other with the same level of pain, codependency, trauma, and coping tools is almost like two people in early recovery starting a relationship, or two drowning people who don't know how to swim trying to help each other. And just remember, you don't learn how to swim by reading a book. After reading Connections, I really think that most people would get more from watching my video on ACA sponsorship. It's shorter, doesn't cost anything to watch, and I think you're going to get more information that's going to be helpful for you. And seriously, work on building community within your fellowship, especially if you're going to in-person meetings. Meet before the meeting, meet after the meeting, because the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting are just as important as the meetings themselves. I'm Ken Francis, and as always, thank you for watching.